Good afternoon, sir. Today, me and my teammate will start presenting about the statutory income and fringe benefit tax along with 5 objectives. The first objective will be for Li Tong to explain it.
Thank you, Xiao Ching. I am Li Tong and I will talk about the fundamental of law relating to income tax and fringe benefit tax in Australia. In Australia, the statute law of income tax is based on the Income Tax Assessment Act 1936 and Income Tax Assessment Act 1997. The general principle of Australia income tax law is that residents recognized as Australian for tax purposes will be taxed on income earned from all sources. As for foreign residents, they will only be taxed on income they earn from Australian sources. In order to determine whether the individual or company are being regarded as Australian for taxation purposes, different tax can be used to tax their residential status. For individual or resident, their residences according to ordinary concept test, domicile test, and 183-day test. And the last is superannuation test. As long as one of these tests was satisfied, the individual will be taxed as an Australian resident. As for company, there is a place of incorporation tax, center management and control tax, and controlling shareholder tax. The income tax in Australia is calculated according to formula show taxable income can be obtained by subtracting assessable income with allowable deductions. After that, multiplying the taxable income with his applicable tax rate will yield a gross tax. The tax payable of a taxpayer can be obtained by taking his or her own gold tax and subtracting any tax offset. In terms of assessable income, it consists of ordinary income and statutory income. Ordinary income is being defined as income according to ordinary concept. For example, income gain from personal accessions, income gain from property, and income gain from business are all considered ordinary income. From the justicial perspective, the term income can only be applied to realized gain, which means a mere increase in asset value will not be viewed as income. Furthermore, there must be a clear relationship between the income earned and the earning activity because the gain would not be recognized as income if the relationship is not clear. As for statutory income, it is income that is excluded from ordinary income but is included as part of assessable income due to the provision of the Act. Example of statutory income could be capital gain, lump sum, and income stream from superannuation, or lump sum received at the terminations of employee and dividend paid to shareholder of a company. In addition to salary, employer might provide fringe benefit to their employees such as loan value loan, private use of car, housing benefit, and living away from home or allowances. This fringe benefit will be treated as non-assessable, non-exempt income for the employee, and so employee do not have to pay tax for it. Employer, however, will be charged with fringe benefit tax. Employers still provide fringe benefit to their employee as this helps to motivate and retain high-quality employee. Apart from that, employer can also claim for an income tax deduction based on the FBT they had paid. The detail of fringe benefit tax were listed within the Fringe Benefit Tax Assessment Act 1986. FBT were calculated based on the fringe benefit taxable amount that the employer pay to employee multiple with the SBT rate, which might be different for each year. This FBT is self-assessed, which means the employer has to calculate the amount of tax they have to pay and it has to pay in quarterly installment. Fringe benefit must consist of several key characteristics. Firstly, the benefit received must be related to the employee performance as work. Secondly, it must be provided within the taxing year. Thirdly, it must be provided by employer. Fourthly, it must be given to employee. Last but not least, there must be a sufficient ratio between benefit and employment, which means there must be a clear relationship between these two aspects. Now, my group member will take my place and continue presenting about the objective 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Li Tong. I will continue the presentation of the following objective 2. First, I will use some relevant news to support whether the Australia tax policy is effective in terms of good tax system objective. The first news I will talk about is a man charged over arranged 2.57 million in tax evasion and false. This is a joint list between Australia Federal Policy and Australia Taxation Office. A 65-year-old man who arranges avoided paying more than 2.57 million in tax-related liability and impersonated as Australia Taxation Office employee is expected to face the court on 23 April 2021 year. He has been charged with 4 offences over arrangement. His dishonesty fails to describe 7 million income from a loyalty payment to a company his controller, which policy arrangement was done to avoid paying a GST liability and associated income tax. The prosecution will arrange the man dishonesty failed to describe the income and associated GST when he failed both a business activity statement in 208 and an income tax in return for the 283-209 financial year. This means his dishonesty avoided paying the 700,000 in GST the company has collected as well as income tax of more than 1.87 million. The man faced the following four charges with dishonesty, causing a loss to another person, or tenants a financial advantage by discretion, dishonesty or tend again from another person. Last one is personal negative commonwealth officials. The second related news to support is an accountant's face court for arranges helping client evicted million in tax. As experienced accountants is due to appear before the court on 11 February 2020 years, charged with 27 tax evasion and false related offence with the Australia Federal Policy, arranges the 62-year-old woman attempt to evict more than 8 million in tax for a client. The AFP arranges that the woman promoted and facilitated an illegal family truth arrangement for her client for the purpose of minimizing tax liability. The AFP also arranges that the woman knowingly loaded 9 false income tax returns on behalf of the family truth. As a result, the truth beneficially arranges avoided paying more than 8 million in income tax. Further, it's arranged that the woman concealer, destroyer, and facilitated evidence in response to an ATO audience is an effort to make the false income tax return appear legitimated. This includes arranging making false representation about the family truth and company record to the ATO commissioner, as well as submitting 37 false or misleading documents. The woman faced the following charges, such as 9 counts of dishonesty causing a list of the loss to a commonwealth entity and knowing there is a substantial list of the loss occurring. 1 count of dishonesty influences commonwealth public officials in the exercise of the official duty. 17 count of knowingly use a false document with the intention of dishonesty influencing a commonwealth public officials in the exercise of the official duty, and if so accepted to dishonesty influencing the exercise of the public duty or function. Therefore, apply the above 2 new, we can know the Australia tax system is not perfect because the law said that the tax evasion is not allowed, but there are still people who do their behavior and it will take 2 or even 3 years to be discovered. Now, let me pass to my group member, Chun Shen, who will continue our presentation about Objective 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Yi Ting. Next, I would like to present the Objective 3, which are the tax consequence of factual situation by application of income tax and the fringe benefit tax law and cases. In Section 8 of the ITAA provide that we can deduct from acceptable income any loss that is suffered in getting or produce acceptable income. It is necessary sustained in carrying on the business of the purpose of produce acceptable income, and it is not capital, private, or domestic in nature encountered in producing exempt income and not accessible non-exempt income. For expenditure to be deductible under this Section 8, it must be the sufficient relationship between the outgoing and productions of accessible income so that the outgoing is relevant to the produce of accessible income. So the cases related was Rombion, Tin, and Hongkong compare NL versus Federal Commissioner of Taxations. The High Court observes that it is both necessary that the occasions of the loss should be found in productive or accessible income. In this case, it is carrying on the business activity and employee is required to fulfill their obligation in respect to the entitlement of their worker. Besides, when an employer contributes to the foundations, the amount is no longer available to the employer. This differs from the situation in cases of Western Proprietary Limited versus Federal Commissioners of Taxations, where the employer remained the owner in equal of the amount it had contributed that year. However, the contributions by the employer to the foundations are definite. Amount paid are required by the EBA to fulfill the employer legal obligations. Besides, the payment by the employer of the contributions amount to the foundation is clearly not of a private or domestic nature, as it is only paid in relations to employee engaged in the business of their employer. Next, whether the expense related to the earning of exempt income or non-accessible non-exempt income will depend on the applications to each participating employer, the nature of their work activity, and the income they receive. Therefore, where the payment of the contributions by an employer is made by the foundations to satisfy an obligation imposed by the EBA, it will be an allowable deductions under the Section 8 of the ITAA. Thus, it does not relate to the earning of exempt income or non-accessible non-exempt income by the employer. Furthermore, I would like to talk about the fringe benefit tax and relevant cases. As Li Tong mentioned earlier, there are the Section 136 for fringe benefit tax and Section 8 for income tax. Therefore, fringe benefit is now exists in the hand of employer, and it is paid by the employee on certain benefit they provide to the employees. In determining whether a fringe benefit has been provided, the case relevant was Commissioner of Taxation was Indorably Children Service. It is authority for the requirement that a particular employee must be identified. Besides, as previously, it must identify a particular employee in respect of employment benefit is provided. So, at paragraph 36, it states that it would not be possible to conclude that a person is relevant without knowing the identifier of relevant employee. At paragraph 37, it found that a benefit provided to trustee of the trust estate can be fringe benefit. At the same time, at the paragraph 38, explained that the share provided to the trustee will not provided in respect of the employment of any employee. Moreover, there is no certainty and the contribution made by the employee are not made in respect of any employee. Therefore, the contribution by the employer to the foundation do not constitute a fringe benefit within the meaning of the Section 136. In the nutshell, in our country, during the COVID-19 pandemic, we may provide our employee with benefit that we not usually provided, and this includes paying for items that allow your employee to work from home. So I will pass it to the Kanusha to continue for the next objective.
Thank you, Chun Shen. I will continue the presentation with Objective 4, which is apply income tax law and related case law so as to resolve dispute involving factual situation. The tax dispute resolution that I chose is AAT perspective. The AAT uses alternative dispute resolution process to help parties to review, reach an agreement on how a case should be resolved. ADR is a quick and cost-effective way to reach an agreement on the issue of the review. The review may then be finalized without the need for a hearing, saving both party time and cost. In July 1986, the Administrative Appeal Tribunal, AAT, assumed the jurisdiction in taxation matter which previously had been exercised by Taxation Board of Review. Most members of the board became members of the tribunal. The AAT now has jurisdiction under the Taxation Administration Act 1953 to review many decisions made by the Commissioner of Taxation. Tax-related decisions most commonly brought before the tribunal are in those respect of the assessment of income tax, the assessment of GST, the imposition of remission of penalties, private ruling made by the ATO, a refusal to extend the time for lodging a tax objection, and the release pay of taxpayer from taxation liabilities on hardship grounds. Conference and conciliation are the main process used by AAT. Conferences. A conference is a confidential informal meeting conducted in good faith that gives party the chance to say what they think the decision is wrong and where possible come to an agreement with the department on how the case should be resolved. The conference is usually the first step in a review after the AAT accepts the application. Conciliation. Conciliation is a more structured process where a conciliator assists the parties to identify the disputed issue, develop options, consider alternatives, and endeavor to reach an agreement. The conciliator does not make a determination but assists the parties to reach an agreement. This may be summarizing view, raising option for the agreement, or giving advice on AAT's processes, including costs and other non-legal consequences. Now, my group member will take my place and continue presenting for the conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Kanusha. Now I will present the summary of Objective 1 till Objective 4. Next slide, please. In conclusion, residents that have been recognized as Australian for tax purpose will be taxed on income earned from all sources. Accessible income consists of ordinary income and statutory income. Salary is being categorized as accessible income for the employee, and employers might have to provide fringe benefit to their employees. Fringe benefit will be treated as non-accessible, non-exempt income, so the employees do not have to pay for the tax for it, but for employers will be charged with fringe benefit tax, but employees can also claim for an income tax deduction based on the FP they have been paid. In recent years, through some news, we have seen that the Australian tax system is not perfect because people still have the opportunity to take advantage of it. Even after 2 or 3 years of the discovery, it still is resulting in the countless losses. But fortunately, there is the Administrative Court of Appeals, which use alternative dispute resolution procedures to help reviewing parties reach agreement on how to resolve a case. ATR helps the applicants to enter into a dialogue with the AAT, and then the department or organization that make the original decision to discuss options for resolving the problems. That's all for my part and also the whole presentation. Thank you.